Going to find the solution of this inequality, 4t minus the quantity 3 plus t is less than or equal to t plus 7. It's always good to practice with some multiple choice questions, get you into the practice of taking the ACT test. Obviously, it's going to be one of these answers, A, B, C, or D. So if we're solving that for t, want to get the t by itself, isolate the variable. First step is to remove the parentheses. To remove the parentheses, you have to distribute this negative sign through that set of parentheses. Take the negative of 3, it's negative 3, and the negative of t, that would be negative t. Now, we have like terms on the same side. It's always good practice to combine the like terms on the same side before you go moving items all over the place. So if you have like terms on the same side, combine those first. 4t and negative t, if you combine those, it'd be 3t. Still, minus 3 is less than or equal to t plus 7. It's also good policy or good practice to try to keep your t positive. So to keep the t positive, we're going to subtract t. But you could have 4 options there. You could do any of 4 things. You could subtract 3t, you could add 3, you could subtract t, or you could subtract 7. Any of those 4 things would be perfectly fine to do. The choice is yours. I'm going to subtract t and add 3 to both sides for this. We have 2t is less than or equal to 10. If you divide each side by 2, get t is less than or equal to 5. So the value of t is less than or equal to 5. The graph isn't up here, but that would be a closed circle on 5, and the arrow would go to the left. T is less than or equal to 5. Next, what is the solution of negative 17 minus 2r is less than 3 times the quantity r plus 1? Once again, we have parentheses that we need to get rid of first. So to do that, use a distributive property. Take 3 times r plus 1. That would be 3r plus 3. Again, try to keep your r positive. You don't have to, though. You could do any of 4 things. Some people want to keep their r on the left side or the variable on the left side. Some people want to keep the variable positive. It does not matter. You have 4 options. You could add 17, add 2r, subtract 3r, and subtract 3. I obviously have no idea what's going to happen next. Well, I'm going to add 2r and then also subtract 3. So you see that I am keeping the r positive. It would be perfectly fine if you subtracted 3r from each side, and we would have had negative 5r on the left. You would have just had to deal with the negative sign later on. That creates a possibility for making a mistake. So again, we're adding 2r and subtracting 3. Get negative 20 is less than 5r. Divide each side by 5. We have negative 4 is less than r. Then you go up to the answer choices, and you start to panic because your answer is not showing up as one of those answers. Don't panic. Relax. Most likely you didn't do anything wrong. Those are some pretty easy steps. Does your answer compare to any of those? Does your answer match any of those? Be very careful of your signs. So if you take this negative 4 is less than r and you flip the whole thing around. So you grab that r and you turn it over. You would have something that said r is greater than negative 4. So you're looking for the one that says r is greater than negative 4. And it's down there on the end, letter I. r is greater than negative 4. The graph of that would be an open circle on negative 4, and the arrow would go to the right. It says, which graph best represents the solution of 3/4 times the quantity m plus 4 is greater than m plus 3? Well, it's a little hard to pick out the right answer without solving that inequality for m. So you do have to go through the process of solving this for m when we do have a fraction. Wipe the tears away. It's not going to be that bad. Some people want to get rid of the fractions immediately. Whether you're solving an equation or an inequality involving fractions, if you want to get rid of the fractions, multiply the entire equation or inequality in this case by the least common denominator. It's not what I'm going to do here, but it is an option. You can multiply the entire inequality by the least common denominator, which would be 4. So if you take the entire inequality by 4, on the left side, the 4's would cancel. You'd have 3 times m plus 4. So when you're multiplying that left side by 4, you don't multiply inside the parentheses. The 4 and the 3/4 would cancel. That's considered to be one term. Now on the right side, 4 times m plus 3, that would be 4m plus 12. So if you did multiply by 4, you would have 3 times m plus 4 is greater than 4m plus 12. But that's not what you're going to see here. I like to keep the fractions around a little longer, live on the edge. So 3/4 times m, that is 3/4 m, and 3/4 times 4, What you're doing there is what you're doing is grabbing your calculator, but what I'm doing is canceling the 4s. 3/4 times 4, that is going to be 3. So 3/4 m plus 3 is greater than m plus 3. Need to group the m's together on one side, get everything else to the other side as usual. You could subtract 3/4 m, you could subtract 3, you could subtract m, or you could subtract 3 again. For this, I'm going to subtract 3/4 m and subtract 3. Now, if you do that on the left side, some people think there's nothing left there. That's still a 0. 3 minus 3, you do have to represent that with a 0. So 0 is greater than 1/4 m. Now to solve that for m, you would divide each side by 1/4, which is the same as multiplying by 4. When you're dividing by a fraction, you multiply by the reciprocal. So if you're dividing by 1/4, you're multiplying by 4. So if you multiply each side by 4 there, 0 times 4 is going to be 0, and that is still greater than m. So if 0 is greater than m, you're going up here and trying to figure out which one of those matches that. Well, it's the same thing as m is less than 0. And m is less than 0 would be letter A. All values of m are less than 0. If you thought it was this, that's where m is less than 9. If you thought it was this, that's where m is greater than 0. And if you thought it was this, that's where m is less than 1. We have m is less than 0. Letter A. Going to solve this compound inequality, 4x is less than negative 8, or 9x is greater than 18. So to solve that, you take each one of these and solve them individually. 4x is less than negative 8, solve that for x. 9x is greater than 18, solve that for x. So for 4x is less than negative 8, divide each side by 4. X is less than negative 2. Obviously, you're already seeing the answer up there, so what am I doing now? Just wasting time. 9x is greater than 18, divide each side by 9. X is greater than 2. So x is less than negative 2, or x is greater than 2. It's one or the other. Obviously, the answer is I. So if the graph of this, you would see an open circle on negative 2, the arrow goes to the left, and an open circle on positive 2, the arrow goes to the right. As I've said, with or inequalities, the graph will split off in opposite directions. That's what you would see here. Solve this compound inequality. Negative 2x is less than or equal to 6, and negative 3x is greater than negative 27. This is an and inequality. So negative 2x is less than or equal to 6. Divide each side by negative 2. Get x is greater than or equal to negative 3. And for the negative 3x is greater than negative 27, x is less than 9. Again, the answer is already up there. X is greater than or equal to negative 3, and x is less than 9. So the value of x is between negative 3 and 9. It could also include negative 3. So the graph of this, it's an and inequality. It would come together as 1. You would put a closed circle on negative 3, start going to the right. You'd put an open circle on 9, start going to the left, and you would see that x is anything between negative 3 and 9, could also be negative 3. Letter C is correct.